Okay, people, back again. What do I got this week? This week I was reading the. Oh, let me. Is that picture? Is that in there? Yeah. Say close up on that ship. The Armada by Garrett Mattingly. Okay, before I start, it's going to sound silly to some of you. Spoiler alert. I know, spoiler alert on history. Some of these books are so good that they feel like just a normal regular published book. And so in that sense, I for one, I don't want them spoiled, right? Cuz let's say this particular battle, I don't know how it's going to go. In the scope of things you know how it ends, but you don't know how it's going to go. And so some of these books, even history books, biographies and whatnot, can carry that weight. So I want to be putting spoiler alerts up. Just FYI. And I would say if you don't if you don't know anything about the Spanish Armada, don't want to be spoiled and want the fun of what's happening, stop the video, go get the book. This one's a good one. Okay, that out of the way. This book, I originally reached for it because I thought, for whatever reason, the Armada didn't click in my head appropriately, and I just thought this was when Lord Nelson, you know, went ham on Napoleon's Armada, sort of fleet. I thought it was about Lord Nelson. Turns out I was wrong. This is the Spanish Armada. What is it? How many years off was I? I was like 200 years off. Ish. Okay, so this book starts in 1587. Now, what our author does, now it's got to be a lot of research. He almost goes by month by month breakdown of the events around this situation. It's not, he doesn't just go, the Armada was sailing, it got in a fight with the English and lost or won, right? He doesn't do this because it doesn't tell you anything about these ships or why they were there. He starts sort of, you can't start from the ground up because that's like 700 years of history or some dopey mess like this. And there's a lot of other stuff happening. So, to pick a through line and follow it and give us a concise yet in-depth history of what happened, I give this man a lot of credit. Lots of credit. I mean, because a lot of these can branch off in a lot of different ways. But we start in 1587 with Mary, Queen of Scots, getting her head chopped off. I'm like, you. And at first, that's a weird place to start, right? But it's going to slowly introduce you. Not slowly. It's fairly fast paced for what it gets to cover. Mary, Queen of Scots, was a Protestant. No, she was Catholic. Everyone else in England was Protestant. Now, like, what's the problem? Right? Well, in those days, not like today. Today, we're completely different. But in those days, if you weren't the right religion, they would, like, not hire you, kick you out of employments, maybe rob you, maybe beat you up in the street. And on the whole, I think the Catholics were kind of worse about it. They go real hard. I think the Catholics in Spain were like killing Protestants. In England, old Queen Elizabeth, she wasn't killing them. She was letting it ride. But Mary, Queen of Scots, was in line to get the throne, and no one wanted it. Well, I don't say no one. Say no one in England wanted a Protestant queen, right? So they cut her head off, and it sets off our chain of events. I'm just checking my notes. Sorry about that. Queen Elizabeth. Now, she's a woman, a queen in charge of England in 1580 such and such, right? So you just use your imagination how hard that was for her. A lot of women can't do this. A lot of politics going on there. And that's another cool thing about this book. The problem he has in covering this particular subject matter is there is a single event that happens, but the makings of that event are from 4 or 5 different people dispersed across a continent, Europe, who never interact with each other, right? So in a book sense, trying to find a narrative through it can be awkward. Things can lead you off. So one of our players here is Queen Elizabeth. And each of them, he'll give each of their sort of individual issues without going into too much detail. Because you could have a full, fat book just on Queen Elizabeth. But we don't need that to know what's happening for this book. Also, side note, as far as histories go, let's say you don't know anything about history or this particular time. This one's a great book to start with. It's going to give you the over-arc without losing too much in depth, without going too much into the weeds. You don't need to know every place on the map, right? I don't need to know every canal in the Netherlands to follow along this book. You get a sense of what these places are important, and he'll give you sort of the why without needing their entire history to get you through it. It's very well done. So we have Queen Elizabeth in England. Obviously, at some point, she's going to get attacked. We cut to a what's his name? Don Bernardino de Mendoza, Spanish ambassador in France. Now, he's part of the reason, when there's any kind of issue in the world, they'll be like, well, we're kicking out America's ambassadors, right? They do this sort of goofy thing. He's sort of the reason from back in the day. This fool was full on trying to start a civil war in France. France had the same issue England had the same issue everyone had. And we're counting heads here. How many of these kings are Catholic? How many are Protestant? And how can I get more of mine, right? He was from Spain. Spain was like the head Catholic area. More than that, Philip II, the King of Spain, was paying out people to help the Catholic cause, right? So he was moneybags too. So our Don Bernardino de Mendoza was in France trying to start a civil war. Who do we got? We have Henry of Guise he's trying to put Henry of Guise in the place of Henry of Valois, the current king. I'm going to oust a king to put this other guy in. Well, Mary Queen of Scots dies, and we're sort of moving the ball. It's the catalyst to move events faster than they had been boiling. Okay, so what's happening? We have a Dutch War of Independence. All this at the same time. The Dutch War of Independence. It's costing Spain tons of money. Well, the English are helping the Dutch, supplying some ships, a lot of soldiers on the hush-hush, generals, captains, this sort of thing, on top of selling them a bunch of stuff. But it's more the stuff they're giving them, which is the issue. And so Spain's like, I need to stop England, who's dirty Protestant anyway, to win the war in the Netherlands and reestablish Catholicism. And you'd be like, isn't that too much to bite off? And he would be like, God loves me, so he's going to make it happen. I mean, they're very religious. So that's sort of their catalyst. That's why they were looking towards England. But Mary Queen dying, Mary Queen of Scots, is like, well, there's no other hope for us there anyway. So there's no... If she had been alive, they could have just waited. She becomes queen, they're Protestant. She'll probably help the cause. Now that she's dead, we know that's not going to happen in the foreseeable future, and this crap's still costing me a lot of money. Enter, now I'm sort of placing him like he does. Enter Alexander of Parma. This is Spain's shining sword, as they say. He's the great captain on the field. He's winning a lot of battles in the Netherlands at great expense. Money, soldiers, the works. It's a quagmire, as they say. And he has the same idea Mendoza has. And that is, well, for him, it's, glory. Soldiers want glory. He's thinking, if I could invade England, it would stop all these issues, and I'd win the whole region, right? I could win England, the Netherlands would be cut off and die, and I'm going to have all this glory. And so he tells Philip II, we need to invade England for me to win this war in the Netherlands. Mendoza is like, I can start a civil war in France so that they can't help England when we invade so we can beat the Netherlands. So, Philip's getting all of this information. I'd say as instantaneous as you can get it in the 15th century, right? I write a note, it takes 4 months to get to Spain, and 3 months to get back, or whatever it is. Just dudes on horses, hand delivering notes. It's kind of crazy. We get to Philip II. He's the big kahuna burger here. Well, let me see. At this time, might need to find a map. I'm going to see if I can find a map. Even without a map, he owns Castile, Aragon, Portugal, dominions from Naples, Sicily, Milan, Belgian provinces. He owns Mexico, Peru, Brazil, places in Africa as well. I think the book says at this point, no one in human history had owned more of the surface of the earth. That's this guy. Dude's literally getting shipments in of gold from the Americas, right? Him and his boats just got an empire. So the thought of him starting an issue with anyone is a big deal. And England is sort of aware he's not enjoying what they're doing. But they do have a big navy, so they're not going to just back down. Enter Sir Francis Drake. He's just a British captain. Now, again, they're sort of the personal issues and how it leads them to bigger. This fool, you were just out profiteering, I think what they call it. You're just out there making some money with a boat. You could get a boat, sail it as a captain or a pilot, like an 18-wheeler driver, right? A long-haul trucker, but with more danger so you get more money. I get clothes or dried fish to this part of Spain, and I get their wine and I bring it back. That's what I do. I'm traveling the English Channel. I'm out in the Atlantic Ocean. Fun on the high seas. Well, he was in... Where was he? The harbor of San Juan de Ulua. Yeah. When Spain just rolled in and took his crap. busted up his crap. He barely escaped on a little dinghy and had to go back to England poor, right? Because if you don't come back with the stuff, you're just in debt, poor. It's not good for you. That was your paycheck. Well, him and his captain get separated. Now, his captain doesn't blame him, but there's a hint of maybe he's a coward. He doesn't say he's a coward. There's a hint of it. Right? So he doesn't have a beef with the captain. But Spain did cost him a lot of money. But more importantly, Spain's what the reason he has this hint of dishonor, which is sending him through the roof. So he starts like a one-man crusade. Like in his mind, I got to take out Spain. It's kind of crazy. And he would go around being a pirate, just stealing Spanish ships, taking their crap, and then going back to England. And in England, they didn't see him as a pirate. But they also didn't sanction what he did. But they also didn't imprison him when he showed up with stolen merchandise, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah, it's one of these situations. He ends up being a captain in amongst the defenders of England, among other things. I think he gets like, he's starting to get famous. He's starting to get famous, and he ends up with a boat himself, a little fleet, and he convinces the Queen of England, we got to stick it to them before they can just roll on us and do whatever they want. So he goes into Cadiz Bay and just wrecks. There's two things here. Our author shows us what it's like if you're a normal person and enemy ships roll into the harbor, right? Because those people didn't know anything that's coming out of that ship. It could just be, we're going to get a bunch of slaves and then roll off. I don't know what's happening. So everyone in this little port town like flips the crap out. Some people get stampeded to death. They're all panicked. It's chaos. And it's affecting the defense, right? I can't move my soldiers from here to there. The streets are clogged with people. I believe the same thing happened in World War II when Hitler was invading France. The streets were so clogged with people leaving or moving or running that the soldiers of France couldn't get into the fight to defend France anyway. So it's repetitive in history as well. That's very cool. So while the people are panicking and flipping out, him and his guys just storm onto the docks and they just start doing inventory, right? I'm going to check all the things that I want and I'm going to take those. Then I'm going to start burning ships because I don't want you to have them. I'm going to start breaking things. Then I'm going to leave before, while the going's good. That's what he does. But in this, he ends up burning. There's a big ship, a big particular ship. Personally, I'm like, I don't know why he didn't steal all the ships. But I think it's too hard to drive them out, right? I think you only have so many guys, and maybe you need more than X number to drive the ship out. In any case, he burnt them. But in burning these, it's the funniest part to me. Well, it's funny to me. He burnt a bunch of barrels. And I'm like, what's the big deal? Right? And the guy was saying, our author, a lot of historians miss this part. You need barrels to store all the stuff. Be it water, be it food, whatever. To make these barrels, you need particular wood that's been dried. That just takes an X amount of time in the sun to just dry the barrel. If it's not dry, then the wet out of it seeps into what you're storing. So instead of water, you just get like slimy mess. Instead of food, you get, bacteria-laden food with green slime on it. It's green slime everywhere. Not good. But that he broke so many of these, it affected that Spanish Armada taking off and staying in the fight effectively. Barrels. I need somewhere to store biscuits. Literally, that's what he said, biscuits. If you don't have biscuits, you cannot win this war. And I just thought that was hilarious. That all these dudes with guns, cannons, ready to kill each other, are waiting on biscuits. Right? It's funny to me, just the word that it's a biscuit. It's actually true, but it's just funny to me. This whole war may have turned on biscuits. But it's probably not the only one, right? All right, speaking of biscuits, it's like a year. It takes almost a year, right? Of this lady dying, of people aware of this buildup of ships before the ships sort of sail off. In that time, our author doesn't just say there was a year and then they went, because there's more to the story than that. Industry, right? He had to just go buy. He had enough money, but he didn't have the stuff. I need wood for barrels. I need wood for ships. I need cannons, cannonballs, gunpowder, ropes, biscuits, fish. You know what I mean? Water. Skins. The list goes on and on and on. How do I feed everyone for the 3 weeks it's going to take to get to England and then back? This kind of thing. And it just wasn't there. He was scouring all of Spain. There just was not enough dried fish at any one time. There was not enough lumber. And the money was so good. Again, this happened in World War II. We were paying out for whatever we needed. Army parts, whatever. Boots, clothes, whatever. And the money's there, so they would sending stuff in that's no good. Ripping off the American government, right? And Truman, I believe, set up like a board to investigate. It's modern times. We have phones, we have cars, we have planes. How do you do that in 1587? Spain was paying out. He's the king of Spain. But the guy would send him green barrels or shoddy rope or canvas that's too thin, right? It's a huge sale. You got to take a time to weave it, whatever. And so every time he's like, we're going to be going in a month, his admiral's like, I can't go. I need more of this. I need the rope sucks. The boat's leaking. The barrels are, everything. It was always something. It kept delay. And he couldn't. There's just no way around it. How do you can't dry more fish than you have. That delay ended up costing him a lot. And sitting like, okay, this boat's ready. I'll grab a crew. And I mean grab a crew because at some points, you're emptying out prisons. You're grabbing dudes off the street, literally, like you're in the service of Spain now. And you're like, but I'm from Germany. And they're like, good. Germany is now in the service of Spain. Get on the boat, swab the deck. This kind of situation. Just chuck them on the boat and not let them off. Well, they're eating. They're constantly eating while they're on the boat. Now, I only get to the next port. I sat there for 3 months. They ate all the food. I'm going to need more food. We can't go again. Add to this a certain amount of hygiene. There were diseases that would start to spread with these guys just sitting on the boat. And you'd have some people would die off. Some people would just get sick and be left on shore. And now I need to stop. I need everyone off. We need to clean the whole boat. Too many got scurvy. Right? And everything just kept making this thing last longer and longer. And he kept trying to bundle it all together at once. Our Queen of England, a woman, right? As she was told many times by all these men around her, they're like, you have to activate the fleet. You just have to do it. We're going to get invaded. It's all going to go to crap. She doesn't. She bides her time. Just almost through the whole year. She doesn't do any of it. until, and it's like Sir Francis Drake's flipping out. He's like, I need these boats. We're gonna get invaded. She just bides her time. She just has a sense of the moment and bides her time. She waits till the last minute and then says, "Give me all the boats I need." They clean them, tar them, whatever they need to do, prep them, line them all up, fill them with guys and food. Not the amount of food they wanted, but all the food they had to give them, and sent them out. And her timing was perfect. Her ships were there without everyone being sick and dying, yet with enough food to fight, and then with cannons. So there's this big contrast on who did it better. And is it luck? It's hard to say what it is. But I don't think it's luck. I think she was observant, right? And if you look at the problem and you're not afraid, then I think you would make that decision to say, even if he tries to rush it, then he's not going to have enough ships. If he has enough ships, then there's no way he can get it all together all at once to be in fighting shape. So even if that crack of dudes lands, it won't be the full force. It'll be a bunch of sick, scurvied gentlemen trying to fight my army, and I think I can win that. So I think she thought of it through either way. Now, there's nowhere written that it says this. I just think this. I think she thought it through either way. But she chose right, and sort of Philip chose wrong. This also applies to our boy Pharma in the Netherlands. He had, I want to say like 60,000 troops or some massive number, some 50,000 troops or whatever. Their plan: I'm going to make my massive Spanish Armada, and we're going to sail up the coast. Civil war in France, so they can't affect me. I'm going to go right over to the Netherlands and guard Pharma's army as he goes the 90 miles, because the English Channel is roughly around 90 miles. It gets real thin right there. I'm going to guard Pharma. He's going to send his troops on little boats onto England, and then he's going to do his wondrous work all over England, and then I'll conquer England. That was their plan. But because it took so long for the Navy to get going, Pharma's army is sitting there in winter quarters. And the same thing happens in winter quarters that happens on these boats. The commanders, the General Pharma, all the gentlemen, the nobles, they're like, all right, I'm going to go back to Spain. It's cold. Y'all stay here, though, because I'm not going to let them disperse, or I'm not walking them back to Spain and then having to walk them all back out here. It takes too much time. Y'all stay here. Hunker down. So you have to, like, as a soldier, you're just, like, pitching a tent. Maybe you're making a quick log cabin. You're just doing what you think you got to do to get through the winter. Massive die-outs start. People get sick. People get hurt. So his as the months go by, his numbers are dwindling. He has this smaller and smaller and smaller of an army. And none of it then goes according to plan. It's just like even if the Armada had got to him, it wouldn't have had like a decent fighting force. It all just went pear-shaped for these people. He's going to describe naval battles, but not in too much depth. It's not going to go, because you could just do a book of nothing but the battle here and go as in-depth as you could be. He didn't do that, but he gives you this great sense of the battle. It's a very fun book. Elizabeth in England, she got a particular guy to run her navy. Make me the ships, make sure they're right. We're going to have a war. His thinking, because there was two types of thinking. You get a big freaking ship with a massive sort of castle in the center where the captain likes to sit and feel important. But that's also defendable. Because what people are going to do is we're going to sail next to each other, grapple on, and then start hand-to-hand fighting and then I take the ship. That was the style then. We have cannons. We have cannons on boats, but we're not really using them in that sense. This guy in England had the opposite thinking. He's like, cut that castle off. We'll be a lighter, faster ship, and then pack more guns on there. Our guns can shoot further than theirs. We'll just pelt them from distance. That was his thinking. So when like 100 ships on each side meet in the English Channel, some people are watching this just from like England. You could just look out in the ocean and see these ships going at it. We didn't exactly know what was going to happen. And by we, I mean people involved. Not the admirals, neither a king nor queens. No one knew. No one's done it before. So the Spanish had these big, slow ships, and they were trying to get in close to England's ships, and he would just move and then try and shoot them from distance. I say try, because we're shooting cannons off like crazy on either side, and they're just zinging off in who knows what direction. They had the distance, but a ship that's bouncing around on the ocean with, I don't think they were bored in. The barrels weren't bored at that time, and they were shooting cannonballs instead of the bullets. So the things are just not accurate. They wasted, I don't know how many shots. They went up on each other, smoke everywhere, and then left and nothing happened. But they were very dramatic about it. Because they're Navy guys, and you know. What do they say? Fisherman's tales? The fish just keeps getting bigger. So they had a few battles, and every time they'd have a battle, Spain would just sort of trot off. Because, well, I'm not dead yet, and my goal is to get over here. But they're too big to take out in a bum rush. This kind of thing. From this battle, afterwards, we get the idea to get real close and then broadside each other. That way the bullets don't miss. But before this battle, we weren't doing that, just so you know. And then here's where them barrels come into play, because it's taking too long. The British keep harassing. They can't ever get it squared. We're starting to run out of food. We're definitely running out of bullets. The British ships are the same. They're running out of food. They're getting low on food. They've almost run out of bullets. So we're going to get to a point where we're just staring at each other. A sort of storm, I believe, comes because the English Channel's temperamental. Displaces people. The English pounce. And it's like a rout. I will say, you know, navies tend to do this now. They fought with valor. You know, he's the main guy for Spain. Sees his craps in a mess, and that I guess his situation needs defending. So he just sails his ship by himself into the mass of the British fleet. For a second, it looks like it's 1v like 50, right? With all these cannons going off. This guy in the midst of smoke. Things are getting broken. People are dying. So, they fought valiantly. I don't think captains on either side weren't really going down like that. It's just this storm. The everything breaking up. They lost their formation. And there's no ships from Parma. You can't get any word out. And it's like it all went pear-shaped on them. The British ships go back to England, right? I don't think they don't have enough cannonballs to finish really anyone off. They sunk a couple of ships. Some ran on some rocks, but most of them they just left after this one big battle. Now, from their perspective, they don't know what's happened. So they're in the mode like, stay at a ready. So Queen Elizabeth stays an extra month at the ready. And actually, this gets a lot of sailors killed. Because again, scurvy, typhus, this sort of thing. I think she loses more in harbor than she lost in the battle against the Spanish Armada. Which is kind of crazy. Our Spanish Armada, or what's left of it, then decides how to get back to Spain. because the admiral wanted to die with his ship, but he didn't think that was the right thing to do. He thought, I've lost, I'll go eat the defeat, and I'll get my king as many ships back as I can get them. So we got England, right? He decides, I don't know why, to go up and around and then back down to Spain. I think he wanted to avoid France or something like this. Whatever. It seemed like a rough choice to me. But they make it sort of to the Irish side, and some of them start to sink or get washed up on the rocks. If you get washed up on the rocks, the waves might just pound you to death. If anyone survives, a lot of the Irish were killing some people just right on the beach because I don't want to pay for a prisoner of war. I don't think they all died. I think some filtered on out. But a good chunk of them died this way, just on the return trip. And then he gets back to Spain. Now, normally this kind of thing would offset something, right? Like you lose a big army or a big navy, and you're in a hole you can't recover from. But like I said, Philip II was rich as all get out. And they just continue to grow after this. But they don't try and invade England again. He sort of loses the will to do that. So England's fine. England is England. We know what happened with them. They didn't lose trade with the Netherlands. I think at some point the Netherlands break free. Yeah, that's sort of how this book ends. A very good book. Hold on. My rating, right. I'm doing this at the end this time? Notes? Really? I'm going to give this a solid, a healthy, a Medal of Honor, not Medal of Honor, a Badge of Honor. No, a Gold Badge 3 out of 5. Now, why? It is history, right? So if you're reading more action-oriented, fast-paced modern books, this will seem slow to you. Just no way around it. Some of the events took months to come to fruition, right? So in that sense, I don't think it's for everyone. It's also, the magic's not in his writing, right? There's no great verbiage to really chew on for us readers. The magic is in his organization. How he laid one thing out after another. That's where the magic of this book really comes in. And it is a skill. And I'd give him a lot of credit for it because it's a lot to break down, to sift through. There's other stuff happening in what did I say, 1500s? There's other stuff happening that could have distracted him, right? But we don't go into all of those. He stays focused, gives us a narrative out of history, gives us a sense of the time, of those people, of their beliefs, right? Like, I think these ships will work. It just didn't work. I need to be closer. I think we'll be able to, if we can grapple on, we can take out the English. They weren't able to. They lost horribly, right? But leading up to it, they had a certain thought about themselves that affected their actions, that then affects the world. And he lays this out very well. So I can't give it a 4 in that sense. I'm definitely not giving it a 5. Normies, you get too bored too easily, right? You need something shiny. It's not for you. But if you're into the Navy, I think if you like Tom Clancy books, I think if you're into history, right? If you're into British history, yeah, I think if you like these, if Three Musketeer era, if you like all of that mess, muskets, the high seas, I think you'll like this book. Not too in-depth, not too detail-oriented, right? Because you can go on and on. But very informative. And a really great book if, like I said, you have no prior knowledge. If you don't know any of these people, you don't know any of these things, he lays it out in such a way that you understand who they are and what they mean, and he then moves you forward. Very concise. It's a very, very good book. I believe you can get it. You can still buy this, right? I believe you can still buy it. I know I saw it on Audible. Give it a look. Enjoy yourselves. Advertisement time? Yeah, sure, why not? Buy my books. You know, it just occurred to me that I'm trying to sell my books while telling you about other good books to buy. Not sure that's the best plan, right? I should just be reviewing bad books and say, oh, these books are horrible. Go buy mine, it's better. I should be doing that. But I'm not gonna, right? Someone, somewhere out here, has to be telling the people what's good and what's garbage. And that someone has got to be me, apparently. This one's very good, though. I want more books on Spanish history. But I'm wondering if I need to learn Spanish to do it, honestly. They have a bunch of history, but I'm not finding them translated. Not like I find the British ones, right? Which I know it takes work. Someone has to do it. Many thanks to them. But I don't see it. I'm sure they're out there. I just don't know what they are. I'll find them. I got other books to read. I gotta read this Lyndon Johnson book, I swear. It's holding everything up. I got a Truman book I can't finish because I don't want it to spoil Lyndon Johnson. It's kind of nuts. Alright. I saw my books there. What is this? Is this our second video of the new year? I'm wondering if I should put all these New Year's and call it a season, like a TV show, right? Like the second season of this channel. I wonder if that'd be cool. I don't know. I'll think about it. All right. Talk to you all. Oh, wait, before I go, I might say this in the next video too. I want to thank everyone for watching these videos. A lot of stuff out there ye could be watching. You tuning into my videos, so thank you. Talk to you next week.